Hi, I want to make a long video on the idea of how many of these things that you perceive and why things may seem so futile and hopeless. Um, like the idea that obviously life is futile and there's only so much you can do. Futile on your level of description. You can do something, but the futility mostly comes from maybe a perception that you've escaped, a delusion you've escaped. Like I've mentioned before, where you think there's something more grand to reality, or you have some kind of delusion, you're just living day by day, and that all of a sudden breaks, and all of a sudden it means less to you, and it seems futile and hopeless, and description of reality, and recognizing you can change it only so much, and it doesn't have anything beyond the same redundant processes over and over again. It only may seem that way um, because you've lost your magical notions of reality. Um, it seemed like so much more when you were living in some kind of delusion or self or in a little bubble where you expected things to happen. Or living in a bubble but looking beyond the bubble and expecting so much more. That's another thing. You're living in a bubble, you look outside and you have so much grand expectation. But when you get outside the bubble, you realize it's not much beyond the bubble than the same old thing. You're doing the same thing. You're in the bubble, you're outside the bubble, you eat in the bubble, you sit in the bubble, you sleep in the bubble. Um, you get outside the bubble, like Bubble Boy. You sit outside the bubble, you eat outside the bubble, you shit outside the bubble, you sleep outside the bubble. And guess what? You were doing that when you were inside the bubble. Still doing the same fundamental mechanism, the same fundamental interaction. You can only change it so much. Interaction inside the bubble, outside the bubble, as you were inside the bubble. You're just doing you're doing it a different way, but you're still doing the same redundant process over and over again. And even if it's different, the changes that you find so interesting will only last so long before you're on looking for some other difference. Before you're looking on for some other difference or something else and something else and something else and something else. And it's just the same old process over and over and over again. Where I want to eat, I'm hungry. How you eat, then you're hungry again. I can't wait for my next meal. I'm full now. Oh, I'm hungry again. I'm eating. I can't wait for my next meal. Oh, I'm full. You're never satisfied. You have to go through the deprivation of recognizing, oh, I'm full. Not only oh, I don't want to see the sight of food again, but the perception that what I'm doing, I'm hungry, but I know I'm gonna get hungry again. And I'm looking forward to my next meal halfway through this meal, and that process just happens over and over and over and over again until you die. And why go through it when it's just the same over and over and over again, redundant process over and over again, when you're just going to die and you're going to go right back to where you started. And you're just going to create a deprivation by existing. It doesn't make much sense to me. I don't know if it makes any sense to you, but if it does, let me inform you. Um, it's not what you think. So, yes, simple enough. You lose your magical notions of existence. And that's where these ideas of futility, even though we can understand to a certain extent that this doesn't have much meaning beyond a certain point. There's only so much we can do. Futile in a certain sense, yes, that we can only change it so much, but not futile in the sense that we're constantly trying to pick up a mess. And futile in the sense that we can know that we can try to reach a goal, and that goal is going to lead to an eventual, inevitable end, an end that we can hope for to reduce the futility of existing. So we're creating a futility and creating an end, and recognizing that inevitability by recognizing the futility of knowing that there's only so much we can do to change the ongoing existence of this value thing that we call existence, and trying to fix that non-futility by using a futility, fixing the futility that we find in this non-futility. So it's non-futile to fix the problems, but it's futile because the mechanism's based on those problems, and we're trying to use that and create a futile solution to fix that futile problem that we're reacting to as something that's non-futile, even though it's futile, because we can only change it. We can only change it. We can only change the aspect so much. We can't. We can only change it so much before we can only ease the pain so much before the pain's right back. We create some kind of greater deprivation. It's the fundamental nature of existence, and there's only so much we can do to mitigate against it. We can only do so much to deter against it. Can't stop every crime. We can't stop every bad thing from happening. We can't stop everything, and that's the point. If we can't stop everything, why have it go on? It's not why even bother? It's why have it continue. Why bother? Because helping one person is enough, right? But it's not about helping. We can only do so much. It's not why bother helping anyone. It's why continue, because you can only do so much. You can only save one person, but one person's better than no person. But you're only saving one person out of 1,000 people, and you're trying to save those 1,000 people, but you can't. You got to choose one, or you got to choose 900 of them. But even if there's only one person suffering, that's more than enough to create the deprivation and make life not worth living. And this is another point people miss. And just because you find life worth living for some delusional reason, even though I don't necessarily think you do, you might be just deluding yourself and you don't realize it. You're only caught up in your mess. You don't know how bad it is because you've had it for that way for so long. It takes a living person, an existing person, to want to exist. And we didn't have to exist to begin with, and that's the only point I'm making. And it's about deterring from future existence more than it is about you killing yourself, or you not existing, or me killing myself. It's not the point. It's about preventing something in the future. Simple, not hard. Don't insult your own intelligence by not understanding that. It's very easy. And almost in a way, it almost seems like in many circumstances that you don't want to understand it because it's so simple. You feel like you're so behind on something so simple. Why even get it to begin with? If it took you this long to understand, why even understand it? Defy it, right? I missed something so easy. Fuck, screw that. I don't want to understand it now. If you want to say I'm stupid, I don't want to understand it at all. That's not going to do anyone any good. Forget the stupid part. Move on and just accept it. Anyway. So yeah, our ideas that we have of existence don't mean much beyond a certain thing, and most of our ideas of futility are basically in response to the crap that was fed into us. The more crap that you had, or the more mysticism or artistic illusionment that you have in your mind, the more you escape that, the more you had to begin with, and the more you escape it, the more likely you're going to recognize. Some people require less, or more, generally speaking, or more people require more. But generally speaking, it usually the more you have, the more you're going to recognize it. And yeah, I would say that's obvious. It's about taking away that if you started raw, then all of a sudden you got a lot of you lived day by day. You looked at life spiritually or mystically, or you saw something greater purpose, maybe a singularity, or you just experienced it. You experienced it more artistically. You experienced something greater beyond the veil. It doesn't necessarily have to be illusion, like I've mentioned before. It can just be living day by day and just being engulfed in reality and having that all of a sudden taken away from you. It's about taking away all the crap that was fed into you. And the more, generally speaking, the more that you take that away, the more like you're going to feel like life is futile, and you're going to recognize it more and more painfully, recognize reality for what it is. And it requires more, generally speaking, and it requires more to take away for you to recognize the futility, or have that, at least that kind of preconceived notion or in your head, or recognize that, have that as an effect of understanding reality. I mean, it's a basic idea. It's simple enough. Everything seems psychotic. Yep, everything seems psychotic. You lose the things you love, the ideas, the notions, anything. Things seem more hopeless than they do, like losing a loved one. Losing all the illusions in your head can be depressing, especially when not only do you lose those things that you love, but those things that you love let you understand exactly the thing that made you love them to begin with, and exactly what the circumstances and all the circumstances around that circumstance in reality, and why that it lets you recognize not only the separation you have, but also recognize the futility of the existence in you and everything around it. So it's not only attacking you, taking something away from you, it's attacking you too. It's not only taking troops out, but it's also sending troops in. So it's not only taking prisoners of war, but it's also killing your prisoners too. It's going in and killing them, not just taking them out. So it's taking them out and pushing them in. And the more you have, the more you have to take, the more likely it's going to seem like there's more happening in there. Like there's less people in there, therefore even two people, even if there's just one person coming in to attack you, it's going to seem like far more than if there were three people inside of there, or two people inside of there, in reaction to those two people coming in. So I guess that's another, like, we have 5 people on the outside, 5 people on the inside. Three guys take out 3 guys, or 2 guys take out 3 guys, and there's 3 guys left, and they're holding, for prisoners of war, there's 2 guys taking out the 3 guys, and you have 2 guys left in there, and there's 3 guys holding you down. So it seems like more when the 3 guys are holding the 2 guys down than it does if there were 3 guys and there are 4 guys in there holding the other guy down. So that's another idea of way of thinking of equilibrium, some kind of contrived equilibrium, where, you know, the more that take it out, the less there's going to be inside of there. That's the essential idea, but it's just interaction, cause and effect, and that's obviously not the only circumstance. But you can contrive it in a circumstance where that's really, to a certain extent, you can only do is create the idea yourself. I think that's really all I want to say. On out, you move, you take it and you push it back. Basic idea. Push and pull, like another analogy describing existence. Pushing, taking out, pulling, and pushing. And it's pulling first, taking what you have, and then it's pushing the crap right back onto you. The futility right onto you in a certain way of contrived way of describing the circumstance. So I think that's all I want to say. So if I have anything else to add, I can always add it in a later video. And thank you, and until next time.